be talking about the leviathan, okay? Both biblically, scientifically, and how that's based in our current reality, okay? So let's go ahead and kind of dive deep into that and see what agwan. So, much like the megalodon, who is a huge shark, and the creature that's bigger than the megalodon that we've seen in our oceans, the leviathan is a dragon, crocodile type of creature that is within our oceans. Okay, so let's dive in. So in 2026, it's a trending belief through Google Maps, heat signatures, and comparisons on online sources that the leviathan is not only biblical, but in our very own ocean. Reportedly by Iceland, Cuba, Greenland, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. And is known to spit fire and cause earthquakes, being that it is 300 miles long and could cover a span of a whole continent. It has been seen turning its head, some people have said, and it's said that the government has known about this since the early 1900s, being that NASA started as an oceanic exploring business, and in that same year stopped to start looking into space, how to preserve our lives in a different place. Okay, so many view this as the reason as to why the freeze has been happening around the globe in this year of 2026, because they're trying to freeze the leviathan. Okay, yeah, so that's crazy, but let's look into this. Okay, so the leviathan is literally a sea creature. Okay, so this is what you can see said in Job about the leviathan. Can you draw out leviathan with a hook, or snare his tongue with a line which you lower? Can you put a reed through his nose, or pierce his jaw with a hook? Can you fill his skin with harpoons, or his head with fishing spears? Lay your hand on him and remember the battle. Never do it again. Who can open the doors of his face when around his teeth is terror? His rows of scales are his pride, shut up tightly as with a seal. His sneezes flash forth light, and his eyes are like eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning light sparks of fire shooting out. Smoke goes out of his nostrils as from a boiling pot and burning rushes. When he rises up, the mighty are afraid because of his crashings. They are beside themselves. Though the sword reaches him, it cannot avail. Nor spear, nor dart, nor javelin. On earth there is nothing like him, which is made without fear. He beholds every high thing. He is king over all the children of pride. In the books of Psalms and 104, 24 to 40 through 26, O Lord, how manifold are your works. In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. Here is the sea, great and wide, which have innumerable teeming things, living things both small and great. There go the ships and the leviathan, which you have formed to play there. In the book of Psalms 74, 13 through 14, you divided the sea by your strength. You broke the heads of the sea monsters in the waters, and you broke the head of the leviathan in pieces, and gave him as food to the people inhabiting the wilderness. The book of Isaiah, in that day the Lord with his severe sword, great and strong, will punish the leviathan, fleeing serpent, that twisted serpent, and he will slay the dragon of the sea. The Bible does not specifically say that the Leviathan is Satan, even though it kind of overlaps with everything that we've been taught about Satan, okay? But what it does teach is that biblically, the leviathan is a real sea creature known to ancient peoples, terrifying and untamable by humans, created and controlled by God and God only. A symbol of chaos, pride, and opposition. A sign that only God has the ultimate, most truest power. However, in Jewish in Jewish tradition, there's the story that there were two leviathans, okay? There was a male leviathan and a female leviathan. And it is said by the rabbis that God ended up killing the female so that they could not create offspring, because if they're formed of chaos and all of these destructive things and they started procreating, then their children could be the dissolving of the world, basically. So, before the two leviathans could mate, in Genesis 1, whenever God created them in the ordering of the cosmos, he slew the female leviathan. And he preserved the flesh, salting it and storing away for the righteous in the world to come, which was known as the Leviathan banquet, which was said to happen at the end of days when God restores creation. The righteousness will partake in a symbolic feast, which includes the behemoth, the Leviathan, and the Ziz, which is the sky creature. And the banquet represents the defeat of chaos, the restoration of creation, the reward of the righteousness, and completion of God's redemptive work. Okay, so why is the male Leviathan allowed to live? Because chaos was not fully removed. Chaos was restrained, and the male cannot procreate. Okay? And he dwells in the depths of the sea and exists as a reminder of God's power and represents the ongoing tension between order and chaos. However, at the end of days in the Masonic age, Isaiah 27:1 says that in that day, the Lord, with his severe sword, great and strong, will punish the Leviathan. And in that day is the final redemption and the restoration of creation. And God will kill him himself. There's also a war between the Leviathan and the behemoth. Okay, so the behemoth is basically like a land dragon. So there's the Leviathan and then there's the behemoth. And those two are said to fight, and they could even destroy each other, which also symbolizes the collapse of chaos, destruction of primordial disorder, and the end of violence and dominance and pride. So take what you will with the, scientific, biblical, and otherworldly traditions having to do with the Leviathan. But I definitely hope that this has brought some clarity and maybe even sparked some interest in different things. For those of you who watched my video about Enoch, where we learned about the giants and the angels and the demons and the Leviathan, this is just a little bit more interesting piece of art that has to do with that. But that being said, you guys, stay blessed, never stressed, with much peace, much power, much love, much light, and of course, much joy.